성공한 트레이더들의 스승이자 최고의 주식, 최적의 타이밍의 저자인 윌리엄 오닐은 추세 추종과 펀더멘탈이 결합된 SLIM이라는 프레임워크를 통해 주도주의 진입 타이밍을 잡는 방법론을 냈습니다. 1933년 3월 25일에 태어난 오클라호마 출신의 주식트레이더 오닐은 1958년에 헤이든 스톤앤코을 시작으로 주식 중개인으로서 경력을 쌓기 시작했습니다. 초기 컴퓨터를 이용한 투자 전략을 개발하기도 했죠. 이후 연구를 통해 오닐은 SLIM이라는 7가지 자신만의 전략과 원칙을 개발했고 그 전략으로 회사에서 최고 실적을 올렸습니다. 그의 나이 30세, 당시 최연소로 뉴욕 증권거래소에 입성하게 되었죠. 1963년에는 윌리엄 오닐 & 컴퍼니를 설립했고 개인 투자자들을 위한 정보와 도구를 제공하는 인베스터즈 비즈니스 데일리 신문을 창간하여 시장 데이터와 분석을 통해 투자자들이 보다 근거 있는 투자 결정을 내릴 수 있는 도구를 마련했습니다. 오닐의 투자 방법론과 성공은 그의 광범위한 시장 연구와 데이터 분석에 기반을 두고 있으며 역사적인 시장 데이터를 철저히 분석하여 성공적인 주식들이 공통적으로 보여준 특성을 도출해냈습니다. 이러한 연구는 SLIM이라는 원칙에 기반이 되었으며 개인 투자자들 뿐만 아니라 전문가들에게도 큰 영향을 미쳤습니다. 오닐의 접근 방식은 주식시장을 이해하고 효과적으로 투자하기 위한 구체적인 기준과 원칙을 제시했습니다. 시장의 추세와 방향성을 이해하고 주도주를 선택하고 손실을 제한하라. 윌리엄 오닐의 SLIM 원칙을 살펴보면 이런 항목들이 있는데요. 현재의 주당 분기순이익, 분기순이익이 전년 동기 대비 최소 18%에서 20% 증가한 종목, 연간순이익 증가율, 연간순이익이 안정적으로 연평균 25% 이상 성장한 종목, 신제품, 신경영, 신고가, 새로운 제품과 새로운 경영 방식, 그리고 신고가를 달성한 종목, 수요와 공급, 우호적인 수급 환경과 거래량의 변화를 주시해야 한다. 주도주와 소외주, 주도주와 소외주를 구분하고 주도 업종 내 선도 기업에 투자해야 한다. 기관 투자가에 의해 지지받는 종목에 투자해야 한다. 시장의 방향성, 시장이 상승 추세일 때 투자해야 한다. 윌리엄 오닐의 프레임워크는 실적과 신경영, 신제품 등 내러티브도 주도주가 갖춰야 할 중요한 추세 추종의 기준으로 봅니다. 이 차트는 윌리엄 오닐이 강조한 컵핸들 차트인데요. 오닐의 연구 결과에 따르면 주가 패턴 대부분은 최소한 7주에서 8주간의 에너지 축적 과정을 거치는 것으로 나타났다고 합니다. 그 밖에도 오닐은 최후의 정점 신호와 주도주의 조건에 대해 아주 상세히 알려주었습니다. 윌리엄 오닐 본인은 모멘텀 투자자라는 세간의 평가에 대해 크게 동의하지 않는다고 말했지만 SLIM이라는 투자 원칙은 주가와 실적 모멘텀을 어떻게 효과적으로 이용해서 주도주를 최적의 타이밍에 선별하고 매수할 수 있는지에 대해 강조했습니다. 저에게도 아주 큰 영향을 준 윌리엄 오닐 선생님의 세부적인 전략과 SLIM 원칙 그리고 컵핸들 패턴에 대해서는 다음 시간에 별도로 더 자세하게 다뤄보도록 하겠습니다. 알파 컨덕터 채널 구독과 좋아요, 알림 설정 눌러주시고 윌리엄 오닐의 인터뷰 시청하도록 하겠습니다.
The one thing that helped me, I think, the most is that I would always look for, well, who's really doing great in this field? And I came up with somebody that I knew was performing great, and I wanted to find out, okay, now what are they doing and how are they doing things? And I even went back to New York and talked to the fella. And
who was that?
I think that was Gerald Loeb.
Okay.
And he had been in the business with E.F. Hutton for years and years and years. And
He wrote Battle for Investment Survival.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And he was a very nice guy. We had a nice conversation back there. And later on, I think when he's getting ready to retire, he moved back to San Francisco and he came down to see me one time. And so I remember asking him before he left, when he came down here, I said, by the way, do you always sell every stock and cut all the losses at 10%? And as he was walking out the door, he'd say, I would hope to be out of them much quicker than 10%. But it was obvious that his whole concept was, if it's not working, cut. Well, this is the strange thing. if you start to understand it a little bit and you're looking for certain things, and the analysts are coming out with this report on this stock, and I'd look at these stocks, and 3 out of 4 of them I wouldn't buy. There wasn't much research that I could honestly use, even though the firm had their research. In fact, the most disappointing time I ever had is that after being at the firm for a few years, I decided I'd go back to New York and visit with, because Hayden Stone had a tremendous reputation. They'd been in business for probably 100 years. Barney Brook was a partner there and all that sort of thing. And I was really disappointed when I met some of the people and what I saw. So the market has always been very complicated, and there are some analysts that are very good, and I suppose there are some chartists that are very good, but the majority are not really up to par because it's so complicated. Now, the thing that's important about that isn't so much, well, gee, wasn't I so smart to buy it? Because if I hadn't had that rule, well, I'm going to hold it until I get 6 months, it had one very sharp break, and normally, you know, any one of us would have just had to get me out of there, and I sat through that, and it came out and doubled from there or something. So the rules help you because it's a lot easier if you don't have to go by, well, how do I feel? Well, I like this stock, well, that's nice, but there better be something else that you can hang your hat on. And I would have rules, and I still today would love to, if I'm in something and it's halfway through and I'm trying to decide something, to have some sort of a rule that makes sense rather than just saying, oh, well, I love the stock, or I'm going to hold it forever, or you know, all this other stuff that goes on. Or how do I feel today about the market? Well, we knew the fund business, and we'd sold funds, and everybody kept saying, you should start a fund, you should start a fund. So, yeah, I did it, and I guess I really didn't want to, but I did it. And
But you had a great year in 1967, right? I mean,
yeah, and in 67, we actually set a record, I think, at that time. We were up 122% or something of that sort. And yeah, I remember that we knew we were heading to toe with somebody else, and in those last few days we were very aggressive and active, and we came out 2 or 3% ahead of the other person. But I imagine somebody else has broken that record by now. But at that time, I think that was, you know, to make 122% in 1 year. And we had, I think, 40 stocks or something that doubled. Or I don't remember how many stocks in there, 50 or 60. And you'd had to have a lot of stocks. But it was a good bull market.
Right.
But we did pick most of the good ones.
Right.
So that kind of got us started. And it didn't help too much either, because most people didn't know about that as it was going on during the year. And then the 1st of January, when they found out about it, everybody went in and bought it. And of course, then it kind of struggled and slopped around and didn't do much. The market wasn't quite the same. So it's hard for people to make money. You got to do everything exactly right.
as long as I've known you, you've said it's mostly fundamental.
It is.
So how do you reconcile that? Why do you know? I know we use charts, and as you said, you have to look at them. But what's so important about the fundamentals?
Well, I think the way that we have come up with some names are because we see the chart, and then we go back, and first thing I do when I see, whether it's chart or the old tapes that used to run across, if I see something that looks interesting, the first thing I do is how much are the earnings? And I'll go, what are the earnings right now in the current quarter, in the prior quarter, in the prior quarter? And then next, what are the earnings in the last 3 years? And then the sales, and then the return on equity. And I'll go through all this, and if it doesn't have it, I just forget it. So you sometimes can come up with the idea on the chart, but the thing that makes it go up is all the earnings and the product. And I'm not going to buy it just because the chart looks good. So it's a combination of those things that, wow, it's acting great and the demand is there and the earnings are up 100% and the return on equity is 40%. A couple of my biggest winners were stocks that had a 50% return on equity and the earnings are growing 100%. And so it's those powerful fundamentals that make the stock double and triple. So actually, I think we're fundamentalists and probably some of the better fundamentalists in the country, because we're looking for who's got the best product and the biggest earnings and biggest sales and biggest profit margins. And so some people see a chart and say, oh, well, these guys are chartists. Well, they don't. Everything I bought was bought as a combination. When I bought Centex, I was buying those huge earnings. And, if you get earnings up 100, 200% for the last 2 or 3 quarters, you better look at the stock. And some of the big winners had that kind of characteristic there, and they happen to have the chart too. But it wasn't bought just because of the chart. Well, I did the research of what stocks had these big moves. And it was companies that had earnings up 100% or a return on equity of 40% and a chart. So there were just certain things I'm looking for. So if you come to me and the story's great and man, they've got this product and it's great and all, and I ask about the earnings and let's say they're not making money now, but this product is so great that they're going to make a lot of money. Well, I'll wait until the first quarter that they make money and then I'll probably buy it. So it's just that I know that these stocks that went up, none of them started with a deficit. They started with earnings being up 50 or 100% or 200% or whatever. Concentration is an important thing. And that's how you make money in stock. You know it well enough so you can... the ones I made some big money in, I had everything in that.
Right.
So I had to think, to put everything in that one stock.
Have the conviction to do that.
Yeah, and I'm also ready that if I'm wrong, to cut it, even if everything is there. If I had some plan, maybe I might have thought, well, at some point, I could maybe start a little hardware store or something.
최선의 방어는 최선의 공격이다. 주식시장에서 최고의 수익률을 올렸던 종목들을 잘 관찰하고 최고의 주식이 어떤 특징을 갖추고 있었는지 알아야 한다는 것이겠죠. 오늘이 말한 주도주의 특징은 이익의 증가, 이익의 가속화, 업종 내 선도기업, 주가 모멘텀 강도, 그리고 수급입니다. 다음 시간에 더 자세한 내용으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 오늘 영상도 시청해주셔서 감사합니다. 금융시장 초과수익 지휘자 알파 컨덕터였습니다.